Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing. He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Who's got a hammer?
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Everybody, welcome to the show. It's Thursday. Got a great show for you all today. Fun stuff. We have Masked Singer. I normally don't talk about these kinds of stories, but this is ridiculous. And so, yeah, we're going to spend a little bit of time on that. We got Marjorie Taylor Greene in one of her newest weirdo rants against the vaccine. We've got Charlie Kirk and transgender cyborgs. I'm not kidding. We're full of insane right-wingers today, including Joe Biden. No, I'm kidding. Sort of. We are going to talk about Joe Biden, though, in his recent appearance at the National Prayer Breakfast, which, of course, we know, thanks to great reporting by TYT Investigates, actually, at the prayer breakfast is backed up by some weirdo Christo-fascist organization. And yet, nonetheless, Biden decided he was going to go to the prayer breakfast anyway, knowing all this stuff. And so, interesting. So, yeah, we've got that story. And we have, well, let's just talk about how this is just great timing on the last story that we have here. And that is, of course, related to the book banning stories that we've been talking about. You're not going to guess what one of the people who was one of the loudest people trying to ban books for sexually explicit material was actually up to in his personal life. I know that's a bit of a long, cumbersome tease, but that's just how I do things. Anyway, so that is quite the story. So we've got a lot to talk about here to dive into. Please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Again, helps us out greatly wherever you're watching. All right, so let's dive in. Let's start out with some fun. Look at the Masked Singer. All right. It appears that former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani upset not only the hosts of The Masked Singer, but a lot of people. I know, right? Now, this is according to a report in Deadline. Giuliani was unmasked during a taping of the primetime series, where again, I don't really watch The Masked Singer, but I kind of get the whole premise of it, where I guess you have people that dress up and you like, I'm guessing like B-list celebrities or something like that. People who are washed up. I don't know. Again, I don't watch it. But apparently they do like a song and dance or something like that, and then the hosts have to guess who they are. Man, this is why I don't watch television. Wow. All right, but anyway, now apparently Giuliani was booked onto this show and did his little song and dance routine. We don't know what he was dressed up as. We don't know what the song was. We don't know any of that since it's a pre-tape, hasn't been shown yet. But apparently, as soon as they saw who that person was, unmasked, so to speak, and by the way, I'm very surprised that Giuliani even wore a mask. But hey, as soon as they unmasked him, you had two judges, Ken Jeong and Robin Thicke, who decided they were going to leave the stage. Gone. Now, they left in protest. Later the people who stayed were Jenny McCarthy. Jenny McCarthy. Now, that's not a name I've heard in a very long time. Now, Jenny McCarthy, she's one of the OG anti-vaxxers, or at least one of the more famous OG anti-vaxxers, who, pushed the dangerous conspiracies that allegedly linked autism to vaccination, which again is totally not true. Now, there's another person that stayed and chatted with Giuliani. I've never heard of her. Nicole Scherzinger, I have no idea who she is. I'm not like somebody who knows celebrity culture. Again, I just told you I don't watch TV, and this is exactly the reason I don't watch TV. It's a cultural wasteland, so to speak. But notice the people who left. Now Ken Jeong, he's fine. I don't have a problem with him. But how bad of a person do you have to have Robin Thicke be disgusted with you? Really? Again, Jenny McCarthy, bad enough, right? But apparently, Giuliani had crossed what little blurred lines were left. I mean, after all, again, Rudy Giuliani did try to overturn an election for Donald Trump, and it's currently investigation. Just saying. But again, aside from all of that, he's still an incredibly embarrassing figure. The guy who leaked hair dye during a press conference, very, very famously, by the way, farting on people during that famous court appearance. Remember that? Doing a press conference at the Four Seasons. No, not that Four Seasons. No, the Four Seasons landscaping company, right beside the sex shop. Yes. And so, look, the guy's an absolute clown. Hey, maybe that was his costume. Anyway, this entire thing did cause a little bit of outrage and a lot of excellent puns and jokes online. But yes, there were people that were righteously angry about this. And, it kind of reminds me of the outrage they had when they brought on Sarah Palin back in 2020. So now, of course, that's related because why do you think they bring these people on? They're lightning rods. Yeah, you get the headlines, you get the stories, you get the clicks, you get the outrage. Hell, that's why I'm talking about it, because there's an outrage. And so people be mad. And for good reason, of course. But here's a couple of examples of some serious points that I thought were pretty interesting. I've Gone Feral says this: these rehab the evil aspects of shows ruins it for me. Now, look, before I get into the rest of that quote, an example of is Sean Spicer on Dancing with the Stars. And so, it's a little spicy, right? But then he continues by saying, there are people who deserve to be on these shows who haven't tried to destroy democracy, haven't corruptly obstructed the peaceful transfer of power. This is why we have to break up monopolized media. No, those are perfectly good points. All very good points. A big dumb idiot man comes in and also says this: the only explanation I can think of is that the show was counting on massive controversy, getting people talking about it again. A calculated PR stunt. Otherwise, I can't possibly fathom why they would willingly allow for something so obviously inflammatory. Big dumb idiot man. That is probably one of the best, most well articulated points that I've heard. Excellent job. Now, on a serious, or I should say a much less serious point, you have another Powell just remarking, "Oh no, I must have died, and this is hell." True. And finally, Nobel Prize in sarcasm tops it off by saying, quote, "That costume must have reeked of scotch and hair dye." And probably sadness. But that's just me adding on to that. This is why I hate cable TV. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Marjorie Taylor Greene. All right. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene was recently on InfoWars, which means, of course, there's all sorts of crazy that's going to come out. Like this.
This is truly mental illness. Wearing a mask today after 2 years of this Chinese virus that has infected our country, this man-made Chinese virus that Dr. Fauci sent our tax dollars to and contributed to, but people still wearing masks. I mean, it's truly mentally ill. We know the masks don't work and the vaccines don't work. People that are vaccinated are still getting COVID.
Oh, okay. Look, you want to talk about mental illness. This could be a case study of somebody who is under complete delusion. No, the vaccines, they don't work. Yeah, they do. I don't know why, but there are people that are under the impression that vaccines are some sort of 100% immunity force field from COVID. No, that's not how that works. Okay? No, what vaccines do is they literally teach your body how to fight infection. That's it. Again, these people, they're fundamentally ignorant about how vaccines actually work. And of course, the masks were there to prevent droplets that you exhale from potentially getting other people sick. In fact, here's the CDC guidance on it that states that masks and respirators are effective at reducing transmission of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, when worn consistently and correctly. While all masks and respirators provide some level of protection, properly fitting respirators provide the highest level of protection. Wearing a highly protective mask or respirator may be the most important for certain higher risk situations, or by some people at increased risk for severe disease. Again, nothing in there says it's 100% effective. No, there are varying degrees of effectiveness. And by the way, if you stack the effectiveness, it's kind of like stacking resistances if you're like into video games at all, right? So you try to stack your virus resistance by getting a COVID-19 shot, your full course, getting a booster, and wearing a mask. That way, you still don't have 100% resistance, but you're much more protected if you're exposed to COVID-19. And so, again, not 100%, but still better than nothing. Way better than nothing. So now let me give you some situations in which masking is effective. When caring for somebody who's sick with COVID-19, that seems very obvious, right? If you're at increased risk for severe illness. For example, if you're immunocompromised, you're an older adult, or you have certain pre-existing conditions. That makes sense. When working at a job where you interact with large numbers of the public, especially when not everyone is consistently wearing masks. So, for example, if you're a bus driver or you're a grocery store worker, it's generally recommended that you wear a mask, or when riding in public transportation, especially for a long period of time and when there's a lot of people. Again, very, very sensible recommendations here. And when physical distancing is not possible, or when you're in a crowded indoor or outdoor public setting. Makes sense, right? And if you're not up to date with your COVID-19 vaccines. So now Greene says that, no, that's just mental illness. That's all it is. No, in reality, the virus has mutated several times. And so the situation has hardly changed from 2 years ago. where she's still railing against, oh my God, 2 years with the mask. No, here's what's changed, right? Now we have a vaccine that is highly effective, but we also have a variant that is much more transmissible. And so now how much more effective is the vaccine? Well, the CDC said on Wednesday that people who are fully boosted are actually about 97 times less likely to die from COVID than those who have not received a single vaccine dose. Damn. So now Michelle Walensky, who's the CDC director, said this during a White House briefing on Wednesday, quote, looking at the data from the week ending December 4th, the number of average weekly deaths for those who are unvaccinated was 9.7 per 100,000 people, but only 0.7 per 100,000 people for those who were vaccinated. This means the risk of dying from COVID-19 was about 14 times higher for people who were unvaccinated compared to those who received their only primary, only a primary series, which is just your 2 main shots, if you're Moderna, Pfizer, or the one J&J. For those who were boosted, however, the average weekly deaths was 0.1 per 100,000 people, meaning that unvaccinated individuals were 97 times more likely to die compared to those who were boosted. 97 times! No, but the vaccine, it doesn't work, she says. There's more. Oh, there's more.
I think that people really have blood on their hands that have stopped the prescriptions of ivermectin, refused people who have had sick family members in the hospital of not being able to take ivermectin or any other kind of life-saving treatment or therapy. I mean, I truly think that we need to investigate all of these people and investigate the deaths that are reported on the VAERS system and hold people accountable, because it's Dr. Fauci and anyone at the CDC or anyone involved that stopped life-saving treatments and therapies and people died. Well, I think they're guilty of murder.
Guilty of murder. Murder. Unhinged. She's psychotic. Wow. Wow. So now, for one, ivermectin doesn't treat COVID. Literally doesn't work. That's it. And not only that, but you also have Regeneron that was effective at treatment when it comes to the Delta variant and variants beforehand, is no longer effective against Omicron. And so that's why they've pulled the emergency authorization of those treatments. And by the way, it's still much, much better to not get COVID in the first place than it is to get treatment. It's actually much cheaper and better to prevent it, And so, but here's the thing, right? So now, you might have noticed recently that anti-vaxxers have been sharing a study from Japan, claiming that, oh, well, we got clinical trials, see? Ivermectin is proven to be effective against Omicron. No, it's not. So now, there was a miscommunication. There was an issue by Reuters. Reuters had issued a report earlier on Monday claiming that Japanese pharmaceutical company Kowa had found that ivermectin was effective against the virus in a phase 3 trial. So now, wait, phase 3 trial, hold on here. So now, they quickly updated that article when they realized their mistake, and in a correction, Reuters had noted that the drug was not found effective in phase 3 clinical trials, but they did find, and this is something that we had already known, that there was an antiviral effect against Omicron in non-clinical research. So now, look, this is not exactly news as far as that goes, right? Because yes, if you take ivermectin and you put it, and by the way, this is important, right? This is the gigantic difference. Clinical trials are done on humans. Okay, non-clinical trials are done in a petri dish inside of a lab. So what they did is that they took ivermectin and they took the Omicron variant. And so they basically tried to figure out how much ivermectin it would take to have a antiviral effect on the virus inside of a petri dish. Okay? And they found that it had a little bit of an antiviral effect. Okay, all right. And so now, like I said, that's in a lab. And so yes, that shows, just like other non-clinical trials, that if you put ivermectin in with the virus, enough of it, yes, it'll kill it. Sure. Now, the same can be said about a flamethrower. Yes, if you have a flamethrower and you use it in the lab against a petri dish full of the virus, full of Omicron or Delta or whatever variant, mind you, yes, that'll also kill it. Yes, it'll be very effective. But you don't want to use those on a human. And that's what's important. Or disinfectant, for example. Yes, disinfectant kills a lot of virus. So, you can get a bottle of Lysol and it says 99.1% effective or 99.9% effective against viruses and bacteria and germs. And it kills the COVID-19 virus. Well, okay, but that doesn't mean that you should drink a bottle of Lysol. That would be stupid. That would kill you. And so that's the issue here. That's the issue. These people, the anti-vaxxers, are going around and saying, oh, look at the ivermectin, the antiviral properties in a lab, in trials, but they're not clinical trials. It's very important. You see, they have these clinical trials to determine if a medication is both effective at killing a virus while not killing the human host. And I think that's the very important part here. Okay? The very important part is that you've got to make sure not to kill the person. And what they found from these different trials in non-clinical settings in the lab is that you needed so much ivermectin to kill the virus in the petri dish that it would be unsafe and that would be harmful and deadly to human beings. That's why ivermectin is not effective. And so understand, those are facts. That's what we know now. So, but what this entire conversation comes down to is people not fundamentally understanding how these things actually work. Again, vaccines, trials, science in general. The American public is unfortunately scientifically illiterate. And that unfortunately allows people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alex Jones, and Candace Owens to go in and hawk bullshit cures for cash. And idiots like Joe Rogan to believe that it happens, that it works, because they don't know any better. And yet they believe, by the way, that, see, it's against the mainstream, and therefore there must be something to it. No. And a lot of that, of course, is unfortunately due to the American people's distrust in institutions. And also the fact that, by the way, when it comes to celebrity, I've noticed that for them, it's better to be wrong and never admit that they're wrong than actually coming back and admitting their mistakes and trying to better inform their audience. It's a sad state of media these days. Okay. Moving on, let's go to Charlie Kirk. Before I get into that, there's a comment here. Hold on. Hunger Games 1989 says, hey, I have mental illness, and guess what? I'm vaccinated. Don't believe anything Green spewed. I'm pretty sure most mentally ill people I know are vaccinated and wear masks. Oh, yeah, no. I also have mental illness. I'm ADHD, so, I get you. I'm not, taking an ableist shot at anybody or anything like that. I'm just saying, if she wants to talk about mental illness, she's got some major delusions going on. All right, anyway. I just wanted to make sure. I bet turpentine would be very effective in killing the virus. Probably would be. Not so good for humans, though. Pretty bad, actually. All right. let's move on. ADHD is not mental illness, it's a superpower. Let me disagree with that. I don't think it's very superpowered having to go through it. No, it actually, dealing with it has not been easy my entire life. So, but that's a whole nother conversation. That is a whole nother conversation. All right. Anyway. Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk has a bonkers new conspiracy theory about the goals of the trans agenda.
The transgender movement is an introductory phase to get you to strip yourself of your humanity to mesh with machines. It's called transhumanism. They want you to say, okay, well, I can choose any gender. Why can't I just have like an exoskeleton of some sort of machine around me? This is why they're so insistent on this transgender thing, because if you stop being a man, then maybe you can stop being a human being. Maybe you can kind of just plug into some sort of machine. This is where their control, their profit motive is coming down the stream. There's a ton of literature about this. I'm far from the first person to comment on it.
Gee, I wonder why that would be. The first person to comment on that. By the way, we'll get to that point in a minute, because he's right. He's not the first to talk about that. But the reason that they don't talk about it a lot is because it's insane. Just insane. But anyway, hey, you know who wants an exoskeleton? I do. Because that would be awesome. Where do I sign up for that? Where do I sign up for a badass exoskeleton? Please tell me, Charlie. Now, secondly, oh man, if you can stop being a man, then maybe you can stop being a human being. That doesn't make sense. Are you saying that women aren't human? Because that's what transgender, basically male to female, transgender people, right? They transition from male to female. Are females not human beings? I mean, really? Really? Because I think they are. But understand that, like, the dehumanization of women, especially trans women, well, that would kind of track with how conservatives tend to regard actual women. So, they treat all women the same way, terribly. All right, so anyway, again, on that too, by the way, if you could stop being a man, you could stop being a human being. What? How is that at all comparative? I mean, by the way, speaking on that, the transhumanism thing, well, okay, here's the thing. We already mesh man and machine. We already do. I mean, you ever heard of a pacemaker? How about an implantable defibrillator? You can even go, simpler. It doesn't have to be a complex machine. It could be screws and pins that get implanted into people all the time. It can be joints. It can be, a knee replacement or a hip replacement. That's not stuff that's natural to the human body, but we put it in there anyway. You don't even have to go inside the body. You can go outside the body. I wear glasses. What? That's not natural. Come on. That's ridiculous. Look, but there are so many commonly implanted devices into the human body that enhances our lives and saves lives. Oh no, does that mean millions of people are now part of the transgender agenda? No, ridiculous. In fact, there's more to that video, by the way. He goes on to explain more of the trans agenda.
Stated goal is to depopulate the planet, and the ones that are...
I'm sorry, that's not the right video. Hold on.
What is the agenda here? Well, the agenda is kind of like Ready Player One meets Inception, where you kind of just hook up to a machine all day long and you're controlled by 5 companies that control your thoughts and your feelings, and the real world actually ends up being the not real world, where everyone just kind of wears goggles all day long. That's the deeper significance of the transgender movement that no one wants to talk about. David?
Really? that may have been the dumbest thing I've heard on my entire life. Oh no, transgenderism and transhumanism, they're the same thing. No, the only thing they have in common is the prefix trans. Now look, Charlie Kirk, again, he seems to think he knows what the secret agenda is. And that nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. Except, yes, actually, this is where the idea is coming from. In fact, you had Sherry Tenpenny, sounds like a Bond villain, by the way, who is an anti-vax so-called expert. Here's what she said on January 28th in a recent appearance on some right-wing show.
Stated goal is to depopulate the planet, and the ones that are left either make them chronically sick or turn them into transhumanist cyborgs that can be controlled by and manipulated externally by 5G, by magnets, by all sorts of things. It's all true. It's all true. They talk, the whole issue of quantum entanglement and what these shots do in terms of the frequencies and the electronic frequencies that come inside of your body and hook you up to the Internet of Things, the quantum entanglement that happens immediately after you're injected, and you get hooked up to what they're trying to develop. It's called the hive mind, and they want all of us there as a node and as an electronic avatar that is an exact replica of us, except it's an electronic replica. It's not our God-given body that we were born with. And all of that will be running through the metaverse that they're talking about. All of these things are real, Stu.
Somebody just learned about the phrase. You can tell. Someone just learned what or heard quantum entanglement on the news and was like, that's it. Quantum entanglement. That's what's going on here. What? What is wrong with these people? They're insane. That's what's wrong with them. But look, let me tell you about what the trans agenda is, right? You want to know what the trans agenda is? Well, first you should probably ask a transgender person. So, not me, but I have asked transgender people about the trans agenda. You know what it is? You know what they're going to tell you? Trans people, their agenda is to be able to be comfortable with who they are as a person and not be murdered by people who hate them. Yes, that's pretty much it. Yeah, to live their lives. Maybe find a spouse, maybe get married, whatever, find a good career, and to not be murdered by a crazed bigot who thinks that they want to turn everyone into cyborgs because some guy with an abnormally small face-to-head ratio said so. Just saying. And by the way, what happened to freedom? Hey, Charlie Kirk, if I want to be a cyborg, why can't I be a fucking cyborg? Maybe I do want to be a cyborg. Hook me up with some robot arms. Fuck yeah. And as long as nobody is forced to get robot arms, what's the problem? Freedom. America. God. These people are nuts. Moving on. Let's go to something else. Good Lord. Something a little bit more serious now. President Joe Biden was recently at the National Prayer Breakfast. Now, the National Prayer Breakfast, of course, is a right-wing anti-LGBT gathering run by a secretive religious group known as the Family. The whole question of why he's even there in the first place is already bad enough. Okay? Yet, the Family also shown to have had ties to Donald Trump and people that were trying to undermine the 2020 election, and has been criticized greatly by secular and left-wing groups. Nevertheless, Biden decided to show up anyway, despite that pressure from progressives and the base, and decided while he was there, he was going to gush about his good friend, Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell, Mitch, I don't want to hurt your reputation, but We really are friends. And that is not an epiphany we're having here at the moment. You've always done exactly what you've said. You're a man of your word, and you're a man of honor. Thank you for being my friend.
Thank you for being my friend. No. How about no? Okay, Mitch McConnell, not a friend. Not a friend. And definitely not a man of his word. By the way, to just kind of remind you what word McConnell normally honors. That's one of McConnell's promises. 100% focused on stopping Biden's administration. I'm going to stop everything. Interesting. Again, he had also had a goal during the Obama administration to make Obama one-term president. He failed on that, of course, but he did try. And look, I guess to be fair, he was a man of his word when it came to filling the Senate seat, a Supreme Court seat, with his own nominee, with a Republican nominee from the Heritage Foundation. After Antonin Scalia died during the end of Obama's administration, you had Obama that had a pick of Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. So now McConnell didn't like that. Here's what he said. He said, Democrats would rather the Senate simply push through yet another lifetime appointment by a president on his way out the door. Given that we're in the midst of a presidential election process, we believe that the American people should seize the opportunity to weigh in on whom they trust to nominate the next person for a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. It is today the American people, rather than a lame duck president whose priorities and policies they just rejected in the most recent national election, who should be afforded the opportunity to replace Justice Scalia. And so, what did he do? He blocked Merrick Garland for about, 7-8 months? Almost a year. And then, of course, Trump wins. And then on January 31st, 2017, a day before Trump made his pick, Neil Gorsuch, to Scalia's seat, McConnell then said, the Supreme Court seat doesn't belong to any president or any political party. Interesting. Very interesting. And on May 28th, 2019, McConnell is asked what he would do if a Supreme Court seat came open in 2020. Right before the election. Because he had made a big deal last time about nominating and filling a Supreme Court seat before an election. Here's what he said. We'd fill it. Would you? Would you now? How about this statement from February 11th, 2020 on the Hugh Hewitt Show? He said, my motto for the year is leave no vacancy behind. And on September 18th, 2020, with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, McConnell then said, quote, President Trump's nominee will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. And that's how we got Amy Coney Barrett. Now, Amy Coney Barrett, what he did to push her into the open Supreme Court seat right before an election is he actually destroyed the judicial filibuster. And so, would you look at that? We ended this filibuster so that I could push through a nominee because I think that we're going to lose the election. All right? And so now, again, he was right that they did lose the election. But here's the thing. McConnell right now is fighting to preserve the legislative filibuster. The thing that he claimed that Biden was so profoundly unpresidential for even considering or talking about the possibility of filibuster reform. Now, of course, Joe Biden didn't actually really push all that hard. There's some mild rumble, mild talking about, we could maybe do something a little bit about the filibuster to try to get voting rights. But he didn't really push real hard on that. And so, of course, filibuster stays in place because, of course, it does. But yes, please tell me about how Mitch McConnell was such a man of his word. I mean, and how he's such a great friend What a great friend you are, Mitch McConnell. Yes, my friend Mitch, who hates everything that I'm trying to do and promised to block my entire agenda, and then does so, of course, because he, I guess, does keep to his word, without a hint of humility, of his entire hypocrisy. Look, there's only one reason that you would call someone like that your friend. And that's when you don't want to actually do anything. That's the only explanation to me that makes sense, you see. I think Joe Biden is being honest. He does like Mitch McConnell. He's a good friend. What a swell guy, great friend, man of his word. And it's because it makes it so that he's got somebody to blame when Biden can't get anything done. And you know what? Biden's happy with that because it's stuff that he didn't want to do in the first place. Build back better? I don't really care about that. No. Handing out billions of dollars in infrastructure spending to private corporations. No, Mitch and I both agree. We love that. Oh, that's good shit. Can I say, my donors, they say, yummy in my tummy. Give me that delicious bipartisan infrastructure bill, which again, has privatization baked into it and hands over billions of dollars of public money to private corporations. Now, I'm not saying it's all bad, but I am saying that that's the effect of the bill, is that it was a gigantic handout. Why do you think it was bipartisan in the first place? But when it comes to social spending, childcare, paid leave, gross. We don't want that. I know Mitch McConnell, he's going to block that. And then, if that doesn't happen, somehow we can do reconciliation. Well, we got Joe Manchin, we got Kirsten Sinema, who we know are absolute corrupt lapdogs of the fossil fuel industry, of the pharmaceutical industry. You know how I know that? Because we've got the same donors. So we know they're going to block it no matter what. No matter what. So, yeah, remember, folks, nothing will fundamentally change. That's what he told the donors. And by the way, remember Biden's promise on student loans, $10,000? Can't even get that. Just kidding. No forgiveness whatsoever. And by the way, Joe Biden is also literally trying to overturn a victory for a disabled student loan borrower in his own state of Delaware who had his loans. A judge had discharged his loans over $100,000 due to through bankruptcy due to massive financial hardship. Do you know how difficult it is to get your loans discharged through bankruptcy? Incredibly difficult. You know who made it difficult? Joe Biden. Joe Biden made it difficult. And now you have Cardona and the Justice Department that are actually literally working together to try to overturn one of the very few victories in getting this poor man's student loans discharged. He's on their side. Very obvious. And by the way, again, there's more video here. There's more video from the prayer breakfast. And this, by the way, this is of Joe Biden talking about and reminiscing about, I remember getting along with the segregationists, and I just miss those times.
One of the things I don't know for sure, but I think is missing in the Congress, we don't spend as much time with one another as we used to. We used to eat lunch together. And I would go to lunch there literally every day and listen to the senior members. And you learn about their losses, their happiness. You learn about them. When you know one another, and no matter how badly you disagree, and people think, Rev, that in the days that's divided here, we had a lot of flat-out old segregationists still in our caucus. But Teddy Kennedy would argue like hell with Jim Eastland, and then they'd go down and have lunch. Didn't agree with one another, but they treated each other with respect even in that day.
I have no respect for segregationists. I will not have lunch with segregationists. I will not have lunch with them on a boat or on a goat. I don't care. I don't want to get along with segregationists. You know why? And you know why they all got along, why they had lunch? Because they're all white. You think if somebody, a black congressman had been around at that time? I know, you couldn't even imagine at that time, right? Black congressmen. There were no black congressmen then. There were no black lawmakers in there, right? That would certainly, and if there were, they certainly were not having lunch with segregationists like Joe Biden. Come on. Come on. So, and by the way, if you don't believe black people are human beings worthy of the same respect as you, then again, I have absolutely no interest in getting along with you at all. At all. And by the way, this isn't just about differences in tax policy. I can have a conversation and I can talk to people who are like, oh, you know, I think maybe the marginal rate on rich people should be lower, or oh, we shouldn't have as much tax money. Well, that's interesting. Let's have a conversation about that. But if you believe that black people should be separate, which by the way never turns out to be equal, or Muslims should be separate, or whatever, then no, you're a racist, and I'm not interested. I'm not interested in this at all. And so, no, this is 2022. And those times, they're not coming back, and they shouldn't ever come back. These issues that we're talking about, healthcare, it's life and death in many cases. And when it comes to the current Republican Party, understand that they don't want you to have healthcare. They'd rather a rich person save a tiny amount on their taxes than have a poor person get life-saving treatment for free. Fuck that. Not interested at all. Now we talk about the club, right? The cocktail circuit. Well, this is it. This is the cocktail circuit, all right? And by the way, this prayer breakfast, this is backed by people who want to turn this country into a fundamentalist Christian theocracy. That's what they want to do. Now, Biden's own spokespeople, when asked, hey, is Biden going to this prayer breakfast? Which a lot of Democrats have backed out. Tim Kaine backed out because of the outrage of what they're, and look at what they're doing in different countries, right? Backing fundamentalist leaders who actually do want to kill gay people. And so, I mean, they're working in South America right now, Latin America. No, this is a horrible organization run by a Christo-fascist group known only as the Family. And so you should not go to this prayer breakfast run by disgusting people, paid for by disgusting people, and generally featuring disgusting people. It's a travesty that Democrats have been going to this for so many years, that presidents had gone to this for so many years. They shouldn't have. They shouldn't have. But as far as the spokespeople, when they were asked, and this should tell you what you need to know about this. They were very, very cagey and had accidentally revealed that Biden was being scheduled, where before they were like, oh, we're not sure about this. We don't really have an answer of whether or not Joe Biden is going to go to this prayer breakfast. And then had actually accidentally revealed that, oh, we're still trying to schedule. I mean, we'll get back to you when we know something. No. Disgusting. There's no reason to go to these prayer breakfasts. And there's no reason to if you actually do go, to gush over Mitch McConnell and miss the time where you used to have lunch with segregationists. No. All right. It's a reality, folks. Biden may have been a much better alternative than Donald Trump. Doesn't mean he was a good guy. One last story for y'all. Recently, I've done some reporting on a wave of book bannings in schools for what was perceived as inappropriate sexual content within these books. So now numerous parents and conservative groups have been targeting libraries and specifically pointing out LGBTQ plus books with characters that are part of that community, written by oftentimes LGBTQ authors and Black authors. And some of these books sometimes will contain some sexual acts, as well as, of course, discussions about racism. So now, again, in response to this, conservatives have been targeting these people and these books and trying to get them removed. Now, here's some irony about this whole situation. Recently, one Kansas City man who spoke out in favor of the censorship of banning books for sexual content, in order to protect the children, was just arrested for allegedly harming the children. This is according to KMBC TV. Quote, a Gladstone man who recently spoke in support of banning books from North Kansas City School District libraries that depicted sexual acts is facing felony charges of second-degree child molestation and a misdemeanor charge of fourth-degree domestic assault. Now, the man is Ryan Uterbeck, 29, who is also facing a misdemeanor charge of furnishing pornographic material or attempting to furnish to a minor in a separate case. So, again, not just one case, a couple of cases. So now the network actually began investigating after sources said Uterbeck had spoken out against books in North Kansas City school libraries that depicted these sexual acts. The station found that he spoke out in November and held a sign during an October school board hearing. On December 25, 2020, a family member of Uterbeck's reported to police that their 11-year-old daughter had been molested by this man. The details in the charging documents, I'm not going to read them. They're pretty horrendous and likely very triggering. But let me just say that the court documents also alleged that Uterbeck had shown the daughter of his girlfriend various videos of people engaged in sexual intercourse, including him and the girl's own mother. Wow, that's absolutely disgusting. Just horrifying. Now, the story further notes that back in November, Uterbeck told KMBC TV that he had supported banning these books because of his superior judgment of what he believes is suitable for children. Here's his quote. He said, "Those conversations are to be had at home, and only I have the intimate understanding of what is and isn't appropriate for my children." Wow. And what an ironic statement that is. Gee, who could have guessed that someone who was so obsessed about banning books that he considered to be inappropriate for children was doing very inappropriate and illegal things to children at home? I mean, how often is it that the people who are the most vocal about hunting down the pedos happen to also be the pedos? Weird. Thou doth protest it too much. I need to defend the kids against the books. No, we need to defend the children against you. The books aren't the ones that are hurting them. Now, look, on the censorship issue, I have to note that there are a lot of cases of the books that are being banned dealing with LGBTQ plus relationships and or racism. And so these are the things that a lot of the people who are trying to ban the books don't want you to know about, don't want you to read about. Now, look, you have a lot of queer students who are actually relying on these books. You know, representation, of course, matters. And so they read these things to try to help them understand who they are and how who they are is not wrong or bad. And this literature also actually helps them be able to accept themselves for who they are. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing. It reduces, the instances of young people doing self-harm. And so the lesson here is when you do censorship without any regard or review as to what you're actually shutting down in terms of conversations of what people could possibly learn from them, well, then you might be doing some serious harm to young people. Actual harm. And look, I understand, and I said this yesterday, most parents, I think, want to do what's right for their kids, obviously. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that what they believe is right is actually right, but I think they believe that they're trying to do the right thing and doing the best that they can. And they want to make sure their kids, make good choices, all of that stuff. That's why it's really important to, be open and to try to learn as much as you can, even if you're uncomfortable. And by the way, also to try to understand and answer what could be very difficult questions and have these difficult conversations, and to do so with an open mind and to do so without judgment. Now, I feel like it's also important to say that if you don't know something, be honest about that. I don't know much about that topic of conversation. That's all. Like, I don't know about it. I'm going to do more research and I'm going to get back to you and I'm going to try to answer your question. Or here are some resources that might help you understand it a little bit better. And so, look, and the reason I say that is that, look, those questions, they don't go away if you try to shut them down. And if you don't try to address them in a correct way, then they're going to try to seek the answer somewhere else. And those places might not have the right information. They might have the wrong information. And they might lead people to do things that are either harmful or just, not good. And so that said, right, it's very, very important that you have open and honest conversations with your kids about these things. All right, but anyway, that said, back to Uterbeck here. So now he's been charged with second-degree child molestation, a misdemeanor charge of furnishing or attempting to furnish pornographic material to a minor, and a misdemeanor charge of fourth-degree domestic assault. And his next court date is scheduled for March 10th. These are very, like I said, serious charges. Man, if it's true, I mean, lots of irony here. Lots of irony. All right. So, all right. Tillman Tim points out, I don't know how a parent doesn't already know if their child is gay or not. I knew years before my son came out to me. I was most surprised that he was scared to tell me. That's a very, very good point. Thank you for sharing that perspective, by the way. Let's see. Let's go to Super Chats here. Spin Me a Sailcloth says, the field of technologies is called biomechatronics. Full dive tech are called haptics. So that's getting into the weeds, but thank you for the knowledge. I appreciate that. Dr. Zippy Scoot says, a profound lack of knowledge of how things work. Jeff, I'm a physicist, a scientist. Welcome to what we deal with all the time. Oh, I get you. I feel your pain. I definitely understand that. All right. That's it on YouTube here. Thank you for the super chats. Really appreciate that. Flaco Wesos resubbed for a month at tier 1 for 4 months. 4 months and I finally get to catch a live show. Yay! That's awesome. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let's see. Any highlighted comments? Oh my gosh, I was correct about the dude when Jeff left us hanging. Hunger Games 1989. No, you were right. I do remember that. I didn't want to give it away, but, I got to do the teasy tease. You understand? We do it live here. It's pretty obvious. Octosquiddy says, then 2, I still have the notion that he'd actually come through on at least one of his campaign promises. Oh, look, I had low expectations. I came into it with low expectations, so I'm not disappointed. Really not. Not disappointed because I had no expectations. That's why I was actually thrilled when we left Afghanistan. Unfortunately, it looks as though the establishment is trying to start a little conflict over Ukraine. And so that's not good. And if you noticed, when we left Afghanistan, we didn't reduce the military budget. We increased the military budget. Uh-oh, not good. War bad. Conflict bad. And so, oh boy, here we go. Let's not start another. Let's not start a war with a nuclear power. That would be a great thing. Really wouldn't be a good thing at all. Not interested. Not interested at all. Are you calling me an imperialist? What is wrong with you? I just said I don't want a war. What is? Oh, imperialists need boogeymen. Okay, I get you. Okay, I get you now. I'm just like, what the hell? No, I'm not at all interested in doing a conflict. I think the issue, like, if they do actually want to try something, I would, first, disincentives, like, I don't know, use diplomacy, and if that's not as effective, best thing you could think of, instead of shipping missiles, is to do things like economic sanctions, which are effective, I think. And so, I don't know, not going to be good if something happens. But at the same time, you've got people in Ukraine that are saying, calm down, America. Nothing's actually happening. In fact, you saying that stuff is going to happen is actually making things worse. So please don't escalate the situation by putting more troops and more weapons, which, by the way, there are a lot of weapons that are being sold to Ukraine. And by the way, that's making defense contractors very, very wealthy, much wealthier, lots and lots of money. No, let's not do more. Let's not do provocation. Just saying. Okay, anyway. No, economic sanctions are not an act of war. They're economic sanctions to try to, de-escalate the situation. To try to say, okay, you've done something that the international community is not in favor of, so we're going to cut you off from trade. We're going to cut off your access to funding, banking, etc., or reduce your ability to get oil deals, etc. And that's a way to get them to rethink some things. That's the thought process behind it. Whether and it has been effective against at least Iran, because it did get them to the table for the Iran deal. So I'm hoping we can have a diplomatic solution to what's going on in Ukraine. And I think we should really kind of follow what Ukrainians are saying, which is to everybody from both sides, calm the fuck down. There's no need to do some escalation. Okay. So anyway, that's all I have to do about that. Or that's all I have to say about that. Let's end the show here. Let's do a raid. Hey, log off already. Thank you for the follow. By the way, go give them a follow back. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. It's friend Cole James Cash. Doing some non-political fun Twitch stuff. So give him a follow back. All right. And I think I will probably do the same thing. But anyway, let's raid. Let's do James from the internet. I haven't really checked that out. So yeah, let's see what's going on there. Everyone else, thank you. Love you guys and gals and everyone else. Have a great night. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Will eat your ass.
Big massive dumps.
Mike Pounds.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
I'm a fatty fat, though.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.